Hey, y'all, and welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Dusta, and today we are joined with best-selling author of Glory Going All In, trauma-informed coach and speaker, Martha Kartaoui. Correct?
Kartaoui, you
Yes.
got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Practice makes perfect.
You got it.
Well, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming out today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited to learn more about you. I was connected to you through Jessica. She was on the podcast, and I talked a little bit about public speaking and how I'd like to start sharing my story. And she suggested that we meet. We went and had breakfast at Simply Crepes in Raleigh. It's amazing. And then we had a great conversation to follow that. So we talked a little bit about it. So I wanted to invite you to the show to get to know more about you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, it was great to connect with you. I loved your energy from day one. And so I was excited about the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very much an energy person. So I like that you can read that too.
Yes, I can.
So let's start out with where you're from and how did you end up in the Triangle?
So I'm originally from Grand Meadow, Minnesota, which is a really small farm town in Grand Meadow, Minnesota. And I lived there until I was 12. And then we moved to the Triangle as a family. I have 9 brothers and sisters. And so there was 11 of us. So we packed up the van and we moved to the Triangle in 1990 when I was 12. And then I was here until I graduated high school and then went back up to the Midwest to Wisconsin for 8 years. And then I've been back in the Triangle for the last 20.
That's amazing. That is a great story. I love that. A lot of people come here and sometimes they never leave, and some people stay here a little bit too long. I feel you on that. So got to come and go.
Yeah. This is home now. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. That's how I felt too when I moved here 12 years ago and never left. I was like, I guess this is home. This is the only place, just so everyone is aware, that I've ever set down roots. And I lived in Florida for 27 years. I did the bare minimum to not settle there.
Oh, yep. I think that when you get somewhere where you can put roots, that becomes home, wherever that is.
Somewhere you feel comfortable, because I know that the small town living has definitely helped me feel a lot more comfortable. As I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, I feel a sense of community. I feel like I'm at home. It's great.
Yeah.
So let's start with your story. You wrote a book.
I did.
What inspired the book?
What inspired the book? What inspired the book was my healing journey. I have been on a long, arduous healing journey for about the last 13 years, but the need for my healing journey started at birth. I was born and raised in a religious cult and was part of that cult until I escaped just before my 26th birthday. So I went through unimaginable trauma being raised in a religious cult and chosen by the cult leader. So physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, verbal, you mentioned it. I've probably experienced it. So when I got out, I found myself not knowing who I was, not having an identity, not having self-awareness, self-consciousness. Like I just felt like I was an empty shell of a human. I didn't know who I was because I had always been told who I was by the cult, and everything that I had ever done or experienced had been controlled. I was always told what I could do, told what I could eat, told what I couldn't eat, told where I was going to go to school. I never had choice. And so I didn't know how to make choices. I didn't know what I liked, what I disliked. I was just, like I said, an empty shell of a human. So that's what kind of forced me into this healing journey.
I completely understand and resonate with that. That's something that I experienced too, was childhood trauma and abuse. And then it led to my adult life also going through that and being told who I am and what I like and what I don't like. So I'm at the beginning stages of where you've already been, where I'm trying to figure out, what do I like? Who am I? Who is this human being standing in the mirror?
Yeah, it really shouldn't be this hard for us to really be able to re-identify with ourselves or identify with ourselves. But it is, because we're so programmed by what we've been through. And we're so, our identity comes from what we've been through, what we've experienced, what we've been told. And so, really being able to figure out who we are, we have to dismantle everything that we've ever known about ourselves. And we have to reprogram ourselves and ask ourselves the deep, hard questions. But you can't even start asking yourself the deep, hard questions until you start healing. And you have to go back into that darkness and that yuck and that uncomfortability of your past in order to kind of peel away the layers and understand, how did we get here in the first place? How did I lose something that I was born with, and figure out, how do we move forward?
I'm feeling that now because I'm like, man, I used to have this great personality and I talk to anyone and all. And now that I've been out of the trauma for good for the last 4 years, I'm noticing that coming back. And I'm like, yes, this is a part of me that I've always been taught to suppress. And it's hard because you constantly have that inside voice telling you, no, no, no. But you're like, I'm free to be me now. So, how does that work for you? Did you find yourself like needing to heal ultimately? Because no one ever heals completely, right? Before they move into the next step of just self discovery? Or do you feel like there was both?
It was definitely both. I think that I became aware of my need to heal before I realized that I hadn't ever given myself the space to know who I was. And that came with the healing journey. But I think I became aware of my trauma and the need to heal that before I ever discovered that I needed to figure out who I was in order to heal. And those things have to work kind of parallel.
I agree with you on that. I noticed that once I separated myself from the person who was causing the trauma and the abuse, I was like questioning, do I actually like this or was I taught to like this? And I've discovered there's a lot of things that I was forced into, liking and wanting to do that are no longer my hobbies. So I had to come to terms with that. Is this truly who I am? Is this what I want?
And the freedom to ask yourself that, and the space and that you have to honor in order to ask yourself that. I remember that moment. I remember like questioning everything and going, okay, I now get to ask these questions. But what if I don't like the answer? That means that everything was a lie, or everything was, like all those things. It really is a mind blow of like, whoa, I literally I have to negate everything that I thought I knew about myself and ask myself if this is really truly who I was born to be, and who I want to be moving forward.
Yes, because that is where I'm feeling right now. Some days I'm just like, if somebody could just tell me what I'm supposed to do and like how I'm supposed to be, then I would feel great. But then I fight with myself and I'm like, but is that really what you want? Because sometimes it's really hard, I think, as an individual to have to feel those feelings and to be able to push through it. So I really commend you on your bravery. It's very hard as a person going through it.
It is. And the harder part is that you have to feel it to heal it. And that is the part that's uncomfortable. That's the part that is taxing, right? Because it's not like we can just put a stop point and say, from this day forward, I'm not that person anymore. And I'm going to, no, like you have to go backwards and feel it all in order to truly heal it all. And like you said, we're a healing journey is that it's a journey, and it will continue for the rest of my life. Like I'm never at an end point where I'm like, hallelujah, I'm healed, y'all. No, like this is a process, and this has been a very difficult sometimes, but it's also been eye-opening. I have a curiosity about myself that I never knew or understood or experienced. And I'm 46 years old and I'm still learning things about me, which is like cool, right? Because it used to be a judgment about myself. And now it's a curiosity. And I'm like, this is a whole new cool world that I get to explore within myself. How cool.
I love that because I feel that so much today. I'm like, oh, am I questioning like my fashion, for example? I always wore things, it was whatever was available. Now I'm like, do I like wearing dresses? Do I not like wearing dresses? And is this something that's going to put me in a state of like also trauma? Because I noticed that a lot of the things that I wore previous kind of remind me of the trauma. I know that sounds weird, but it's just like just getting dressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sometimes just really hard.
I love that you bring up about what you dress can trigger you, right? So in the cult, we were forced as women, we were girls, women, we were forced to wear long skirts, button down blouses, had to wear our hair pulled back. And leaving the cult, those were the first things to go for me. I was like, oh, heck no, I'm not wearing long skirts ever again. I'm never going to wear a button down blouse. I'm never going to wear a homemade anything, right? And I'm cutting all my hair off, right? And it was like a liberty moment. It was this liberation that came with that. But that doesn't change your identity. Your identity is so much deeper than what we're wearing. But for years, I wouldn't wear a skirt. I wouldn't wear a dress. I wouldn't wear a button down blouse or shirt of any kind because it would trigger me back to like what I had to do, what I was forced to do, what I was made to do. And I didn't want any part of that. But now I look back and I'm like, that was part of it, but that's not, that wasn't even me. That wasn't, I never knew who I was. So how could that be me? Right. So now as I've gotten older, I've tried to embrace more of the feminine side of me. I mean, I still have short hair and that's my choice now. I like my short hair and I've embraced that. It's not a rebellion anymore. It's just it's what I choose for my hair. But for a long time, I was like this, the yoga pants and the t-shirts and the sweatshirts and the oversized everything because I didn't want to ever like look like a cult girl again. And so I love that, I'm not the only one that's triggered by wearing something in specific.
No, absolutely. When I was a kid growing up, we never went thrift shopping, even though we were poor. And one time I begged my mom, I was like 14, and I was like, I don't want to wear the clothes in which you think fit me and like that are the in style, because she'd always go to JCPenney and get stuff. And so like I found it a form of rebellion myself to always thrift shop, to always wear like hippie clothes because she wanted me to be hip. And now I feel like I'm somewhere in between and I just don't care. I just want to be comfortable. Like I don't even care if it looks good at my age. Just as long as I got two pieces on, we're good to go. Sometimes just one, just like a dress and go,
Yeah.
But it's definitely very triggering. And especially with the hair, I just recently got back from Wilmington. I chopped all my hair off because I wanted something new and different that was not the old me.
Yeah. There's power in that too, right? There's power in making a drastic change as we step into a new chapter. I've definitely gone through that too. I think the biggest change that I made physically was when I made the decision to release excess weight that I'd been carrying around forever. And I really became intentional about my health and I started to release this weight. And notice I say release instead of lost, because lost indicates to your subconscious that you need to look for it, you need to find it, and I'm like, no, I don't ever want to find it. And so it's been 12 years or so where I have released 12, in the last 12 years, I've released 100 pounds and I've kept it off for the last 12 years. And the reason I've kept it off though, is because I consciously, intentionally made a choice that I was stepping into a new season. And I made a lot of deliberate choices in order to facilitate that. And I think too often we get caught up in this idea of I have to go on a diet. I have to do this. I have to do that to fit into something that somebody else has constructed, that you should fit into some model of behavior or the way we look or something. And for me, it was very personal. I didn't like what I was seeing in the mirror. And I was on this healing journey and I was finally ready to really sit with her and find out, why was I severely overweight? What had gotten me to that point? And how was I going to fix it moving forward? And for me, I had to do it the hard way so that I would never go back and allow it to happen to me again, right? Because you know how it is. The weight creeps up slowly, slowly, slowly. And you wake up one day and you're like, how did I go from a size 10 to a size 22? Like, how did that happen? But it's slow. And so I made the intentional choices to start releasing it slowly and did it all by myself and did it with intentionality and did it with shifting my lifestyle that no longer was served by the way that had gotten me to that obesity. So, yeah.
Yes, I noticed that my weight has fluctuated too. Whenever I was going through some of like the worst domestic violence, I was always really heavy. And then
It's a protection.
it is. And I
Yep.
just ate like all my feelings
Yep.
down and I was okay
Yep.
with that. And then it got to a point where I couldn't eat. And so I would lose a lot of weight and then people would
Not lose.
notice. I would release a lot of weight and people would notice and they would ask me if I was okay. And I was like, that's a weird thing to say. We should be celebrating this, right? But that's not how it looked to other people. And I'm
Right.
starting to realize that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Weight was a protection thing for me. It was definitely a protection thing for me. And when you start realizing that you no longer need that protection because we are our protection and we've become strong enough in who we are, who we want to be, who we're becoming, that we no longer need the whatever that was serving at that time, that protection. That's when you won't do the fluctuation anymore. That's when you won't ride the roller coaster, right? And I did the roller coaster for many years. I would lose 10, but I'd pick up 15, or I'd lose 30 and pick back up 25. So once I decided to get off the roller coaster, really address the internal issues that were causing that in the first place, that's why I've been able to maintain. So, and I'm never going to be skinny. I don't have an ideal to be skinny. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be somebody that can do the things that I want to do. And that's way more important to me than a size or, I'm comfortable with who I've become and the skin that I'm in, which is way huge for me because that was never the case.
No, and that's very hard. And I'm at that point in my life where I just want to be healthy and I'm making good decisions based on that. And instead of trying to get down to a certain number, it isn't about that. It's about how healthy I am.
How do you feel? How do you feel in your skin? How do you feel when you look at yourself in the mirror? Those things are so much more important than a size or a number on a scale.
No, I agree. And so I'm working on that. So I'm really glad to hear from you because this is giving me so much hope that it's going to be fine. I'm going to get through it. Yeah. I'm going to heal. I'm going to figure out who I am. And that's okay if I don't know today.
100%. It's a process. Give yourself grace in the process because not every day you're going to wake up and have that same gumption and excitement and courage that you had the day before. It's a process, and having grace and kindness and love for ourselves, knowing that this is a journey, this is a process, that's huge.
It is. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. I really appreciate that. It helps me and probably my listeners, hopefully as well, become more vulnerable. So let's talk about your trauma-informed coaching and how your experiences with the cult led into this.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been on this journey for 13 years, and during that 13 years, I was married. I was raising children that weren't mine. I was in a corporate job doing really well. But I woke up one day and I was like, there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to life. And I don't know how to get it, but this can't be it. And so I was on this journey of finding myself, of figuring out who I was and figuring out what I wanted to be when I grow up, right? Like that's a $1 million question. And I was getting to just about 40, and I really started having this dire need of purpose, of what sets me on fire, what excites me, what people talk about purpose and passion, but what does that mean for me? And I would come up empty. I was like, well, I'm a good wife. I'm a good mom. I thrive at work. And I'm like, but why aren't those things fulfilling me? There's gotta be something else. And so I went to a life coach, and we really started unpacking what it meant to have a purpose, to have a calling, to have something that really sets you on fire, that excites you. And I was dumbfounded when I couldn't come up with anything. I'm like, I've done all this work and yet I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm successful at so many things, but I'm not successful on knowing what I'm passionate. It just didn't add up. And so as I worked with this coach, I really started unpacking this idea that I had never given myself permission to have a purpose other than what was right in front of me. So I was a mom, I was a wife, I was working in corporate, I was all of these things, but those had become my identity rather than me choosing them, right? And so as I did this work of okay, I'm going to start asking those tough questions. Like when I start talking about something, what excites me? And that started a whole new process of like stepping into my purpose, stepping into the things that really, really get me excited. And what I learned through that process was what got me most excited was when I would share my story, it resonating with somebody else and them seeing hope because of my vulnerability, because of my courage, because of what I've been through, them seeing hope in that. And that was like, wah, 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 like the buzzers went off and all the, like, it was just like huge, like, whoa, people care about what I have to say because it helps them. And so I really started continuing to figure out, well, then what do I do with that? And so I decided a few years later to get my coaching credentials. And then I was like, okay, well, now I'm a life coach and a health coach and I can help people lose weight. And okay, but that doesn't feel like who I am either. That's part of my story. That's not the story, right? And so I kept just kind of doing the building blocks and figuring out, no, like, how do I make a difference by doing the things that I want to do, by doing my purpose, by doing my passion? And that's what led me into coaching is I found that by sharing my story, but also by sharing my process and my resources and my community, that I could help people to take the next step in their healing journeys. And so that's what led me to coaching.
I love it. And I kind of giggled when you said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I am 39 years old and I still don't know what I want to be because I don't know who I am. Yeah. So I feel like it takes a great sense of self to know who you are, what you want to do.
100%. I talk about this a lot of times with my clients and from stage, as I talk about so many people go through their entire life without truly having a purpose or a passion, because they get stuck in jobs, they get stuck in careers, they get stuck in life, right? And life be lifing. And they just never yes. get off that roller coaster of like, well, who am I really? What is it going to mean to have lived this life? And do I know what purpose is? Do I know what passion is? And so many people get through their whole entire life without asking those questions. So the fact that you're asking those questions and doing the work and trying to figure out who you are, that's huge, because that will lead into your purpose and passions.
I think so too. I think that you're right. I did get stuck in this, and life really just lifed the heck out of me up until recently. Mm-hmm. And I was given an opportunity in my life, which I don't feel like a lot of people in my situation have. I came from a domestic violence relationship, and I ended up getting the opportunity, now that my kids are adults, to go out. And I'm still young. They're adults now, and I get to go figure it out. I'm not stuck on this like hamster wheel. And something about it feels like very like refreshing and releasing, mm-hmm. because I worked in customer service jobs my entire life. And it just felt like I kept getting stuck in that. And I was doing everything to make everyone else happy, but I had none for myself. Like at the end of the day, I was like, this is it. I was the mom, the wife, and I didn't have a job for a while, but I've never really held a job because I've always been an entrepreneur. So for me, that's kind of hard. And so whenever the divorce was imminent, I felt kind of lost. And I felt like, oh, I'm going to go get this job and support these kids, and right back on that cycle. And I chose different, which has everything has led me to where I'm at today. And I really am so proud of myself. So I just wanted to share that with you. Like, it is inspiring. And so keep telling people, keep inspiring them, because someone once told me recently that I was an inspiration. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I just told you that I had a shit life and bad things happened, but hey, look, I kept going and here I am.
Right.
Never really realized that there was a story there. And that I was inspiring other people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cry a little bit.
No, that's the thing too, is that often I hear people come up to me after I've spoken or contact me on DMs, and they say, like, you inspired me so much. Thank you for telling your story. I don't have a story like yours, but my parents got divorced and I got into drugs or whatever. I'm like, you have a story. We all have a story. And when we do the work to heal from our story and it no longer defines us, we then are able to resonate and help other people understand that they don't have to stop. They don't they can do it too. They find a freedom in understanding that they can do it too, through our courage, through our resilience, through our story. And so I always repeat back, like, you have a story. This is your story. Just because you don't have a cult story, you still have a story. Everything that you've been through is part of your story. It doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be your future, but it is your story. And there's power in your story, but you have to do the work in order to get to the power.
That is very true. Because if you would have talked to me 4 years ago, there was no power. There was just me kind of feeling bad that I ended up in a situation for the third time that was not good for me. And like now I'm bringing tears to my own eyes just thinking about how I went from that person to the person I am today and all the opportunities I've gotten because I'm deciding to do the work. I'm deciding to look deeper. I want to question everything.
Well, you've made the decision to break the cycle. And that is one of the most courageous things that we can do in our lives, is break the cycle so that your children won't have to repeat the cycle that you picked up from probably your parents or from your grandparents or whoever it was. You've made the choice to end that cycle. I call it the generational curse, right? The generational curse will follow us until we say, no more. I'm ending it with me. And I'm going to do the work so that I never create it for somebody else. So I'm really proud of you. It's amazing.
Thank you. And I feel like you're right. You're absolutely correct, because I look at the generational curse that followed my mother and her mother before that. We were all teen moms. Here's the deal. I was an 18, 19-year-old teen mom. So while I didn't necessarily break it, I did with my daughters, because my daughter just turned 18 and she's like, we're not doing this. Yeah. She's going to go to school. She's going to do the things she wants in life. And she's going to have to live the same life that me, her grandmother, and her great grandmother had to live.
Right. And that is wherein lies the power, that you made the decision. And now your children are going to reap the benefits of your very, very courageous decision to say, no, I'm not going to allow this in the generation that I'm creating. Awesome.
It's so powerful. I'm going to try and stop crying, because that is such a big thing. Again, I didn't think that this was a story, that this had any power. And now I'm seeing that it honestly does. And if it gives anyone else hope, you can leave the relationship, you can start a business, you can do so many things and raise your children, and everything will be okay.
Right.
It's great.
And that's also a misnomer, right? Once that we get on this healing journey, that life is a piece of cake moving forward. And that's not true either, right?
No.
The truth that happens when we go through a healing journey is now we have different tools so that we can bounce back more quickly. But life is still going to life. You're still going to have pain. You're still going to have things that come up, right? Like, on my healing journey, I've still experienced things that are very painful: divorce, miscarriage, changing jobs, starting a business. All of these things have come on my healing journey, right? Because life's still going to life and life's still going to happen. But I have the tools so that I can bounce back more quickly, that they don't derail me and I don't end up in depression or anxiety or any of the things that used to control my life. I don't go back to that place. So it's not like starting over. It's just you have a different way of bouncing back. You have a different way of coping, and your coping mechanisms are now healthy versus unhealthy, like drugs or alcohol or sex or any of the things that I had used to cope before, or food, right? And so that's the difference.
It is. I will agree with you on that, because back in the day, I did not know how to cope with anything that I was going through. And so my first, things was drugs, alcohol, sex, all of the things, and food came last. And now that I've gotten through the situation, my coping mechanisms are different. Mm-hmm. Now, instead of being like, I'm a sad bitch, I'm a bad bitch, and it's okay.
Yes.
Like, it's just, I think reframing things too. I did a lot of therapy, and I learned to use my tool chest with all my coping mechanisms, but also to reframe things and not let myself get drugged down into depression or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah. I was on a podcast yesterday, and the host shared something that just hit me so deeply, because you're talking about depressed or depression. And she said, what depression really is that you need a deep rest. And I was like, holy crap, every time that I have experienced depression in my life was really just my body's way of saying, you need to slow down. You need to pay attention to me. I'm trying to get your attention, and you need to rest. You need to slow down. You need to pay attention to you. You need to heal you. Right. And that really resonated because I was like, so many people go through depression. So many people go through anxiety. So many of us have that as part of our story. But if I had understood back then that what I really needed was just a deep rest, I needed to get in touch with me. I needed to sit with that little 9-year-old girl that had seen nothing but trauma for so much of her life, that she didn't have the skills or the coping mechanisms or the tools to be able to do anything else other than be depressed, right? And that was really powerful to me. So I wanted to share that.
No, I appreciate that, because as you were saying that, I was thinking about how every single time I went through an episode was, this is my cycle. I get super depressed. I don't care about anything. I'm not going to do anything. And then one day I get sick of my own shit and I go, you know what? We're not doing this anymore. But I needed that rest period to kind of like reevaluate and figure out what it was that was causing the problem.
Or reset, right? Like you need the time, the space, the energy to be able to reset. Nobody that goes through depression has a lot of energy during that time. And thus why we need the reset, why we need the rest. So yes, all of that.
Exactly. And that's really great that for us to be able to recognize that now, because I know that, even a few years ago, I would have been like, nope, just depressed, hate life, can't do anything, stop functioning.
Yeah. Shut down.
Shut down. Yeah. And then sometimes, like my daughter, I love her to death, but she says things to me that just make me like aware of it. And she's like, I don't remember what it was doing. I was going to do something and I was like really depressed. And she's like, yeah, I was just waiting for you to get tired of your own shit. And I was like, okay, I am now. She's like, good. Now what are we doing? And I'm like, I'm going to cry, because that was not me as a child. That was like, oh, here we go again. This is what, back into the cycle of bullshit.
But look how powerful that is, that you have brought up a daughter that has the wisdom and has the courage to be able to say to her own mom, like, I'm just waiting for you to get out of your own way. I was ready. You know what I mean? Like, that's amazing. Like, that says something that you've done right.
I tried. I really tried. So I'm really very happy with that situation, because that is one thing that I was not strong enough.
Well, you should be proud.
And now I feel like really proud that she is, and she helps me with my own strength. So it's not just me giving to her, it's her giving it to me too.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Huge. And what a better human being she is going to be for those lessons so early on. Like, if I think about what I was at 18, oh my God, like, it's a scary thought that I made it to adulthood, right? Like, I didn't have that kind of wisdom. So, and I didn't have parents that gave me that kind of like space, right? To be able to voice my own opinion or to have those thoughts or wisdom. Like, I didn't have the space to do that. So I applaud you.
Well, thank you. I definitely wanted to make sure that my kids felt like they could express themselves, because I never got to. And I know that sometimes we overcorrect with our children, but I feel like I've learned and we're better. We're in a better place.
Yeah. So, ending that cycle.
Ending it. That's right, guys. You can end the cycle. Let's talk about your speaking engagement. I know that you have one coming up here in a couple of weeks, and you were telling me a little bit about it at breakfast. Let's talk about it.
So I have had the honor of getting to speak on several stages over the last year. So this is all still really new. I only went public with my story a year ago in March. Like, March of last year is the first time that I went public with my story. And in the last year, I wrote the book, I started the business, I created the community. I've done all of that in the last year. But I had to go through this journey that we've been talking about, right, in order to get to the place where I was ready to go public. And I was always scared to go public because I still have a sister in the cult, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to her because I spoke out. And now I realize that was just my own limiting belief, that I had control of something for her, which I don't. Like, this is an individual journey. That's the journey that she continues to choose. And it is a choice. She continues to stay where she's at, and that's her choice. And I've had to let her go in a way of just like releasing her and saying, okay, we're ready whenever you're ready, but I can't chase you any longer. I can pray for you. I can wish you well. I can send you love, but I can't limit my life because I'm scared of what's going to happen to you, because that is your choice. And so once I was able to kind of release myself from that burden, I was able to step into all that I've gotten to do over this last year. And speaking is one of those things that I've gotten to do. And it's crazy powerful. I feel honored every time that I get to take a stage. But yes, I'll be speaking in Nashville in 2 weeks, and I'm excited. I'm speaking to other entrepreneurs and other people that have their own stories, and it's just a 4-day conference packed full of people sharing their hearts, their tools, their resources, and it's so uplifting to be in that same like sphere. But also, like, you never know who needs what you have, what you've learned, like what that tidbit that they take away from something that you shared, and that changes their life. Like what happened to me last year. I was in the same conference, but I was watching the conference last year. And there was something that was said by so many different people that said, okay, Martha, it's time to stop hiding. It's time to tell your story. It's time to write your story. It's time to start sharing. And you can no longer hide. Like there's a bigger calling on your life, and it's time for you to step into it. And that courage came from attending this conference that I'm now keynoting at, which is just, for me, it's a little mind blowing how it comes full circle. But yeah, I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to see you speak. I'm going to have to come to this conference. I know they do it, once a year?
Yeah, once a year.
Perfect.
You'll have to come next year.
I'm super excited. I love Nashville. It's actually somewhere I haven't been. I've got a whole I discovered I love traveling. Believe it or not, I'm super excited. So I have a whole bucket list, but that's a whole other story. So tell everybody where they can find you on social media and your book.
So my book is Glory Going All In, and you can get that on Amazon. Or you can go to www.letgloryshine.com, and that will take you to the link for my book as well. And you can find me on social media under my name, Martha Kartaoui, Kartaoui. I'm under Facebook, Instagram. I'm under Let Glory Shine on TikTok. So yeah, look me up.
All right, and we'll link all of that with the episode so you guys can follow along in her journey and listen to and learn more, because I'm really excited to get to know you better over the next, hopefully, rest of my life.
Yes, you're stuck.
I love it.
Stuck with me. I can follow you wherever you go.
I love this. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate it and your insights. And I look forward to seeing where you go. You have to come back in a year and update us on everything.
Me too. You're going places too. And I'm excited to see how this evolves for you. So
yes, major life plans, but stay tuned to follow and find out. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt. We'll see you next Tuesday.